The keto diet is fantastic for weight loss, but before you jump right in and become part of the keto culture gang, there's a few very important things you need to keep in mind. I analyzed over 100 research papers. Okay, well, these aren't the real research papers. That would be bad for the environment, but you get the point. After countless of hours of research and more than 10 years in the weight loss industry with 2 degrees in my pocket, I've come to realize that the body is beautifully complex and there is no one-size-fits-all diet. We are genetically extremely different from one another and therefore need to find a diet that works best for our individual bodies. That being said, welcome to a diet deep dive series where I go digging for scientific truth behind every known diet and weight loss fad out there so you don't have to. Last week we looked into the carnivore diet and the week before that we looked at the vegan diet. I've heard your calls loud and clear, so here we are. The keto diet. Dun dun dun. Simply explained, the keto diet is based on one simple principle. Take the body from a carbohydrate burning machine and turn it into a fat burning machine. You'll often hear keto dieters refer to being in a state of ketosis. It sounds fancy, but all it really refers to is when the body starts breaking down fat for energy, the main molecule that the body actually uses from that breakdown is called a ketone, which it gets through a very complex biochemical process, but I'm sure most of you don't care. I do, but that's just the biochemist in me. Anyways, so when there's a lot of ketones available, the body simply chooses to use ketones as fuel instead of carbohydrates. It's the path of least resistance, which the body will always take, especially when carbohydrates or glucose as we know them in their purest energy form is in low supply. Now, there are 3 main, let's call them head scratchers that come along with the keto diet. The first one being keto flu. Then we have digestive tract health complications and also hella dangerous conditions like heart attacks and strokes. So I went digging and I compiled every last piece of scientific literature I can find on the topic, and here's what I have for you. Keto flu is a real thing and it happens to newbies trying the keto diet quite frequently. It's basically a condition where within the first week of going keto, you feel icky, tired, you have headaches and you're nauseous almost all the time. It's quite terrible actually. The science behind this is pretty interesting though. Turns out it's not some type of virus flourishing in this new low carb state that the body is in. No, it's literally the body objecting against you not giving it carbs. It's like a stubborn baby. At this point in trying to switch the body from using carbs as a fuel source to using fats as a fuel source, the body simply isn't making enough energy fast enough through burning fats yet, and therefore the body feels flat and you feel tired. The fat burning furnace isn't functioning at 100% yet, which I find very interesting. So that explains the feeling tired part, but what about the headaches and the nausea, you might be wondering. You see, the body is beautifully complex, as I always say, and something that makes the body even more special is the fact that the brain can only use glucose as a fuel. Yeah, that molecule that comes from carbs, that's the one. So now not only does this new low carb diet make you feel tired initially, the brain isn't happy with it either. Now luckily for us, the body isn't that useless and it can make glucose from fat. The process is called gluconeogenesis. It's a very cool process, but it's complicated. Everything in the damn body is complicated. I digress. The body at this point in switching over from using fats as a fuel isn't used to having to make its own glucose from fat yet, especially to such a large extent. And that's why the rapid change over to a low carb mode is catching up with its abilities. The good part is, however, that if you persist through this initial phase, the body quickly adapts and turns up its fat burning flames. So there is hope. Unless your name is Stefan and you can't stop digging, then you run into head scratcher number 2, digestive tract complications. Now, did you know the bacteria in your gut that helps you break down food, they also need to be fed. Some of them, in fact, only live off of, you guessed it, carbs. So if you don't consume carbs, they die. And that majorly messes up your gut microbiome. That's why you often hear people on the keto diet speak about being constipated or gassy. They try and blame it on the protein, but it's not that. It's the digestive workers being dead, not doing their thing. Anyways, now speaking about protein, here comes the biggest head scratcher of them all. Heart attacks and strokes. Now, keto enthusiasts firmly stand behind the fact that you should not be consuming carbs, which we'll leave them at that. But then they go on to say you should also not be consuming too much protein. They say that protein will easily go through that process called gluconeogenesis, so then your body makes too much glucose. And that then makes it difficult for the body to switch over into a state of ketosis. Now I get this, it kind of makes sense, but what you're left with is fats. you can almost then only eat fats. And this is where it gets both tricky and controversial. You see, the medical world believed for hundreds of years that if you consume a high-fat diet, your arteries will be clogged up, and this will lead to blood restrictions to your organs, and that's how heart attacks and strokes happen. But now the keto community says, no, this won't happen, because the only reason a high-fat diet was believed to clog up arteries was because the artery walls were damaged, giving place for the fatty deposits to latch onto. And these damaged arterial walls were apparently caused by a high carb intake, somehow. It's kind of true, but it's not really carbs, it's more simple sugars like soft drinks and sweets and junk. But that's also a hella complicated physiological process that we don't need to get in right now. Point is, the science backing this theory that high fat is only bad if consumed in the presence of high carb is very limited. And the science backing high fat diets causing heart attacks is not lacking at all. So I tend to stand on the side of avoiding fats, but more particularly bad fats. Now, luckily for us, I know a thing or two about bad fats. I even made a video about it. In fact, I talk about fats a lot on this channel. A bad fat is a fat that can latch onto arterial walls. These are called saturated fats, and they mostly come from animal-based sources like bacon and butter and so forth. And good fats, also known as unsaturated fats, can actually latch onto these bad fats and break pieces off of them. These are plant-based fats like nuts and avoes. So theoretically, if you have a good balance of good fats and bad fats, you won't have any problems. The thing with keto is just, is it really sustainable? Almost all studies I found suggested that people who start the keto diet can't stay on it for longer than 3 months. And this makes sense. To be in a state of ketosis consistently, you cannot slip up. You cannot have a piece of cake on your birthday, and you also can't enjoy a pizza evening with friends. It's incredibly difficult to completely cut out carbs from your diet. So that's why I believe we're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place in this whole diet culture we live in today. I've seen it with so many of my clients. If a diet isn't sustainable, if it doesn't allow for flexibility, you just won't stick with it. Yes, high carb diets aren't good for you. They are the main cause for insulin resistance and weight gains, but that doesn't mean cut them out completely. And yes, high protein diets are fantastic for weight loss. It's the building block of almost all muscle tissue, for Pete's sake. But also yes, fats are extremely necessary for hormone production. And we definitely do want the body to be more effective at using stored fat for energy instead of storing fat for later use. But we need a balance, and it's not keto, it's not carnivore, it's not a diet. It's called a healthy lifestyle, making consistent healthy choices. I have a free PDF of the 18 most important healthy choices. If you want it, feel free to DM me on Instagram. We have to make healthy choices consistently, like drinking Coke Zero instead of drinking sugar Coke. Wait a minute, dude. The science on artificial sugars doesn't look good either. I guess we know what the next video is going to be about. Anyways, see you next week. If diet deep dives and scientific truths behind how the human body works intrigues you, feel free to click on the subscribe button below and let me know in the comments which nutrition myth you'd like me to discuss next. This one was pretty fun. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.